The year was 1900 BA, before anime. There existed two great nations, the United States of America and Japan. And they didn't exactly get along, because once upon a time, Japan threw a bomb at America. And America didn't really care for that. So in a classic act of American one-upsmanship, America retaliated by throwing two bombs at Japan. And Japan didn't really care for that. So in an effort to destroy the American people from within, they crafted a deadly weapon, an American neutralizing instrument of maximum efficiency, otherwise known as anime. And with big smiles on their faces, Japan offered their creation to America like it was a freshly baked apple pie. But America was onto them. This wasn't their first rodeo. After all, America invented the rodeo back in 1664. They took one look at Japan's so-called anime and turned it down.
Get out of here.
And so Japan walked away. It seemed that America's petty shooing was an airtight defense. However, there was one thing that America did not account for, and that was the 1990s. The decade that birthed Toonami, a television block primarily broadcasting Japanese animation. And before they knew it, anime started gaining traction in the West. Thanks to shows like Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Mobile Suit Gundam, Kiss X Sis. Okay, maybe not that one. Anyway, it wasn't long at all before anime's popularity became massive in the USA, and it was a sad day for American oldsters. Uncle Sam cried, and Emperor Hirohito laughed. But America, patriotic as ever, didn't admit defeat. They looked anime straight in the eye and said, hey, we can do that too. And so they did. So why exactly am I telling you all this? Because somehow, these events led to the creation of My Life Me, and Now I Hate 1,000 Years of History. Roll the intro. My Life Me is an animated... Okay, can I just start by saying how stupid this title is? I mean, what was the thought process here? Quick, Jeff, give me an adjective, noun, and pronoun in that order. My Life Me. Perfect. Was the name guy sick that day? Was them live they already taken? Ladies and gents, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this for you. This show sucks. It's abysmal. It's not very good. That's the point I'm trying to get across. Now, I imagine a lot of people have never heard of this show. I mean, I used to be one of those people. I used to live a carefree, innocent life. But my unrelenting desire to watch obscure and sometimes crappy cartoons got the better of me, and now I suffer because of it. So what is it about My Life Me that's so agitating I don't even introduce myself properly? Speaking of which, hey everybody, I'm Andyb. I hope you're doing well, because Lord knows I'm not! Well, if you're willing to lose some brain cells watching DeviantArt the animated series, then let's take a look at My Life Me. Before I tear into the show with the might of a screeching weasel, I want to talk a bit about the show's development, because it's actually kind of interesting and I think it will help contextualize a few things. My Life Me was created by a trio of female writers, JC Little, Cindy Filipenko, and
Svetlana Chtakova,
a Russian comic artist best known for the romantic comedy manga Dramacon. The show was co-produced by Montreal-based studio Carpe Diem Film and TV and German-based studio TV Loonland. In July 2006, the show officially received a development deal from Teletoon. It seems there were big plans for this series. Even before production started, My Life Me was planned to be, and I quote, developed as a lifestyle brand. They were going to have a bunch of merchandise, there was going to be a highly interactive site with games, drawing tutorials, a comic creator where you can make and share comics. They even planned to create original shorts that would somehow take advantage of other platforms such as mobile and video on demand. Yeah, talk about ambitious. You can't say they didn't dream big. It's amazing to see how much they plan to have compared to what we actually got. And while I haven't come across any images of official My Life Me merchandise or any of the planned shorts, I do have some images proving that the My Life Me website did exist. I don't know if it was any good, but it did exist. So everything seemed to be moving along and the series was set to air in the fall of 2009. However, development ran into a small problem. In early 2010, TV Loonland filed for bankruptcy. Their assets and licenses were sold off, and this included My Life Me. The rights to the series were then acquired by Classic Media. After being bought by Classic Media, the show's launch was understandably delayed, and it was slated to be released in late 2010. And so finally, after a lengthy and troubled development, on September 19th, 2010, My Life Me first aired on Teletoon. Okay, now let's go back to some of those dates. The show's development was officially announced in July 2006, and its defining feature and selling point was its anime-inspired design. Even in 2006, having an anime-inspired design was not a new groundbreaking idea. Shows like Teen Titans, Totally Spies, and Avatar: Last Airbender all incorporated anime elements into their designs way before My Life Me. Even Kappa Mikey, for as ugly as that show is, did it before My Life Me. So the fact the show came out in late 2010 just makes its defining feature that much more dated. At the core conceptual level, My Life Me was basically dead on arrival. Not a good start. Oh, but being unoriginal is the least of this show's problems. Compared to its other issues, it's the lesser of worse evils. First up, we've got Bert Small, our leading teen protagonist. She's a passionate artist who's really into manga. And she's not like the other girls because she's quirky and creative. So creative, in fact, that she named her cat Neko, the Japanese word for cat. She named her cat Cat, and she's the creative one, folks. Fortunately, Birch isn't overly gushy about her love of manga. I mean, she definitely makes it known, but it isn't too overbearing. Unfortunately, she makes up for that with her other terrible qualities. The worst of which being her self-righteousness and hypocrisy. She constantly does things that contradict her so-called morals. Like in one episode, she talks about the importance of saving the trees, but then has no problem printing out hundreds of flyers and posters when she runs for student council president, just so she can fix up the art room that basically only she uses. Because of moments like this, whenever she tries to be upstanding and do the right thing, she comes off as disingenuous and conceited. As My Life Me's lead character, Birch isn't a very good protagonist. But then again, her friends aren't that much better. Next we have Liam, Birch's cousin and comic writing enthusiast. He's meant to be the wacky comic relief of the group, except he's not the charming kind of wacky like Hugh Neutron or Kramer. No, Liam's more like a corporate birthday clown, the kind of wacky that's annoying and makes you want to kick him. And maybe file a restraining order, good god. Now to be honest, there are moments where he's not that bad and you kinda feel for the guy. But sadly, those few good moments are overshadowed by his numerous dumb and unfunny moments.
I'm a manga fan, man, a big manga fan. I just gotta over manga, gaga.
Holy crap, shut up!
Then there's Raffi, the cool guy of the main group and the object of desire for Birch and pretty much all the girls at school. And that leads me to my one My Life Me fun fact. There are 3 recurring girl characters who constantly swoon over Raffi, more so than anybody else in the show. These 3 fangirl characters are actually self-insertions of My Life Me's 3 creators. And the fact they made their characters obsessed groupies over a fictional teenage guy is kind of weird to me. I guess they really liked his character, but maybe a bit too much.
He's so cool with his dark hair and his sexy smile and his dreamy dark eyes.
Like any one-dimensional love interest, Raffi is a very plain character, primarily meant to be desired by Birch. I mean, he's occasionally confident and sometimes upstanding, but that's pretty much it. I mean, he's shown to have multiple interests, but they keep changing so much they never feel like a distinctive part of his character. Like today it's drums, but tomorrow it's rugby, and then he's suddenly captain of the soccer team. Like, make up your mind, man. You know, the more I think about it, Raffi's kinda like Barbie in a way, with all his different forms and variations, but underneath it all, he's really just a boring plastic doll. And so we're 3 for 3 with these mediocre main characters. Will the 4th and final protagonist be the diamond in the rough who am I kidding? The answer is no. Last and definitely least, there's Sandra. And she's just kinda the worst thing ever. She is by far the most obnoxious and insufferable character on the show. She's constantly moody, insensitive, at times just plain malicious, and really just an all-around scumbag to everyone around her.
It's not exactly a sport, but I guess it gives them a reason to breathe. Because it would be way more amusing to see her totally lose it with her precious Raffi.
Why don't you just tell them you're doing this to ruin Amelia's life?
No way! Their concern is hilarious!
And sure, she's a skater, which is usually a +1 in my eyes, but that doesn't save her. Even when she's in a position where I'm supposed to feel sympathy for her, I can't bring myself to care because she still acts like a It's to the point where you wonder why her friends even hang out with her. And this is where I need to explain the pod system. You see, at their school of Cosmos High, kids are put into groups of 4, known as pods. And you're forced to work, hang out, and be friends with the people in your pod. And they treat it like it's a fucking blood oath. You dedicate yourself to the pod. You live only for the pod. Mild dystopian assimilation aside, it really feels like a cheap writing gimmick. The pod system is a lazy, poorly explained concept used to make these characters spend screen time together. So anyway, like I was saying, Sandra sucks, she's a terrible person, her last name is LeBlanc, is she related to Fred from Fred's Head? I have no idea, let's move on. Moving away from the main foursome, there's Amelia, the main antagonist of the show. And you can tell she's an antagonist because she's the head cheerleader, she's popular, she's stylish, and she's blonde. You know, I gotta say, blonde girls really had it bad in 90s and 2000s cartoons. Unless they were a main protagonist, they were typically shown to be either stupid or evil. And Amelia is the latter. Now, to a girl like Birch, Amelia definitely would be an antagonist, I can't say it isn't fitting, but it's the most generic and obvious dynamic they could have created. Amelia's character is so stereotyped and by the numbers it's painful, and she keeps applying lip gloss but her lips look the exact same! The sad thing is, she may be stuck up and devious, but honestly, Amelia's no worse than Sandra. At the very least, she has less screen time. Let this be a lesson to you, that if one of your main protagonists is on the same level as your antagonist in terms of likability, I think you have a problem. Even in the villains department, My Life Me comes up short. And finally, there's Mr. Norman Tosin, a teacher at Cosmos High. In fact, he's one of the only teachers we see at Cosmos High. Out of all the episodes I watched, there was only one that implied another teacher works there.
Concerning the lesser-known applications of quantum physics.
Oh, Mr. Toes.
Now, while Mr. Toes is one of the more tolerable characters, he's still far from being a good character. I mean, his defining character trait is that in the middle of talking, he'll randomly jump between different accents.
As for the rest of you, the polls are closed.
Everyone accused of a crime has the right to a fair trial.
You might want to think up some sneaky ways to sell those tickets.
Because apparently that's comedy gold. It's a dumb gimmick that wears out its welcome almost instantly, and he proceeds to do it throughout the entire series.
Understood, Romans?
That joke is old now, shut up!
And there you have the Sinister Six that are My Life Me's main characters. I don't really have a segue into the next section, so I'm just gonna play a few select clips that I think best summarize the main cast.
Well, I did. I always do extra work.
It feels really great to be good at yet another thing.
I'll take over the team and destroy her cheery little world.
What's the problem? My hair's perfect.
They said you'd never make it.
Even with a disaster like My Life Me, I like to give credit where credit is due. Because not everything about this show is terrible. It does have a few redeeming qualities. For one thing, the show's design approach. Now at face value, one might say My Life Me has an anime-inspired art style. But upon further analysis, and according to creator JC Little, the show takes more of a manga influence. Now to some of you that might seem like the same thing, but there actually is kind of a difference. The show's manga influence can be seen with its transition between panels and its use of black and white overlays. With one of the show's creators being an experienced manga artist, I can definitely see this being familiar territory. So even though the show's art style wasn't exactly new or groundbreaking, I will say their approach to doing said art style was kind of unique. Like I said, the show does have redeeming qualities, another one being... Okay, fine, I only had one positive thing to say. Look, I tried being nice, but this show gave me very little reason to be. Cause let me tell you something, at this point, we've only scratched the surface as to why this show really sucks. And now that we've got the pleasantries out the way, it's rippin' time.
It's ripping time!
The way I see it, a theme song is the first impression a show makes on the viewer. And right from the get-go, My Life Me makes it very clear that you are in for a bad time. Just take a listen.
This is my life, so don't get in my way. I'm here to stay. If you think you can slow me down, I don't want you hanging around.
It's a crazy time to be a teen.
Oh, fuck that. Ugh. It's only 15 seconds, but I feel the pain of 1,000 lifetimes every time I hear it. But I will say, it does capture the spirit of the show. It's whiny, irritating, embarrassing. I mean, you can't say it isn't fitting. So instead, I'll just say it's a terrible theme song and move on. Now I'll admit, compared to some other Flash shows of its time, My Life Me is a step above in terms of design quality. The show can look decent in certain still frames, but these character models akin to MapleStory OCs just really aren't cutting it for me. I brought up DeviantArt earlier in this review, and this show's designs really look like mid-2000s DeviantArt. And unsurprisingly, there's quite a bit of DeviantArt for this show. In fact, if you looked up My Life Me right now, don't do it! But if you did, you'd find DeviantArt right on the landing page. Dude, without even scrolling, I came across this image that I'm gonna have to blur in the video. Now you may call me crazy, but I actually looked at some of this My Life Me fan art.
You what?
It was very mixed in terms of quality and purity. Some of them honestly weren't that bad. I mean, it doesn't look any worse than the actual show. But then, oh great, it's Fat Birch. And Muscular Birch. And, oh god. You know, curiosity killed the cat. Why couldn't it do the same for me?
Look at it! Look at it! Look at it!
But things get worse when these pictures start to move. I've mentioned in previous reviews, I'm a fan of quick, snappy animation. When it's done well, it's engaging, it's high energy, and offers a lot of comedic opportunities. Now, My Life Me's animation definitely has some speed to it, but this is not snappy animation. This is sloppy animation. It lacks a lot of the fluidity needed for good smooth motion, and a lot of the scene choreography is messy. And what makes this animation hurt even worse for me is knowing that genuine effort was put into it. In this interview with Animation Magazine, JC Little talked about the show's creation process, mixing 3D backgrounds and traditional 2D drawings, and quote, trying to push the boundaries of cut-out digital animation. I can respect and acknowledge that time and care was put into this animation, but fuck if the final product wants to showcase that. I'm sorry, but it's not very good. Amidst all the cheap designs and jerky animation, this show has some really strange imagery in it. The kind that makes me stop and acknowledge that somebody had to draw and animate this. Like you'll just be sitting there watching an episode and then suddenly stuff like this.
Break it down.
No, don't attempt to adjust your monitor, it's just Birch as a chimp, it's fine! Nothing unusual here! Moments like these do not feel thought out. I'm honestly convinced they had a stockpile of random scenes and needed an excuse to use them. But according to creator JC Little, the manga panels are supposed to represent the characters' inner thoughts. And ignoring these abstract nightmares their minds can conjure up, it's not always clear whose thoughts the panels represent. Hell, sometimes the panels make it unclear what's actually happening. Like, did Mr. Tozen really jump from that high and not hurt himself? Was it all in his head? I mean, if it wasn't real, then how'd he get down there so fast? What, can he fly? Teleport? Was it all a dream? Did he used to read Word Up magazine? I don't know!
Explain yourself now!
Alright, it's time to rip into this show's biggest problem. It's bad writing. Roll up your sleeves, folks, it's gonna get messy. Now, I've already talked about the main characters, but the supporting cast is also pretty bad. Whether they be bland, annoying, or just embarrassing, these people are not likable. It's hard to watch a show where I can't relate or get behind anybody on screen. Okay, maybe except for the janitor. He's just trying to do his job and these fucking kids keep making a mess! And the descriptors of annoying, boring, and embarrassing can also be used for the dialogue. Here's a few samples.
Hey guys, what's buzzin'?
Gonna be the big daddy of Cosmos High. You can't beat me, don't even try.
Tasty.
Booyah.
Huh, me too, I say booyah.
The diamond sapphire choker for the ultimate punk princess.
That hurts.
Besides being unlikable, these characters behave and react so unnaturally. Half the time you're wondering why they're acting the way they are.
Yikes! Wow.
Need help, ladies?
That sounds vaguely plausible.
If your characters are so poorly defined that it's difficult to understand their basic motivations, then I think you should go back and rewrite a thing or two. I mean, they'll just overreact for the sake of overreacting. Because over-the-top anime expressions and high-pitched chibis are the extent of this show's comedy.
It'll be fine.
And the time they spend on crappy jokes, they could have used fixing up the script. Much like the animation, the flow of the episode plots is anything but smooth. This show has a knack for laying out story events in such a disjointed way. Not to mention the sharp changes in pacing. Typically, the first 4 minutes of an episode hits you with a rapid-fire string of events as they try to set up the plot. The second half then moves through said plot at a slower pace. These episodes are 11 minutes each, yet because of how irritating they are to sit through, they feel way longer.
Maybe you should just mind your
Oh god, there's 8 more minutes of this?! And to top it off, these characters are inconsistent. It's like even when I try, I can't adjust to this show's crap factor. Defined character traits and dynamics will get ignored or changed just to fit the specific plot of an episode. Like sometimes Birch is really into Raffi. Other times she's more neutral around him, for no specific reason. It's not like this is creating dramatic tension, you're just turning the love switch on and off. Inconsistencies like this are a prime indicator of cheap writing. This show may not have an ongoing narrative, but if they can't be bothered to stay true to their characters, then I can't be bothered to care.
My parents took away my cell phone.
I don't care!
Now, in a more positive review, this would be the part where I talk about some of my favorite episodes. But in case you haven't noticed, we're talking about My Life Me. So instead, we're gonna go over 5 of my least favorite episodes, the cream of the crap, if you will. And trust me, there was a lot of crap. Sandra starts a petition against the school's new ban against fast food, but Raffi doesn't want to sign it because he's a vegetarian, and so to impress him, Birch pretends she's a vegetarian too, which she interprets as being self-righteous and chastising all meat eaters in your way, and having awkward dialogue with Raffi.
Look, kelp! Yum! Kelp is so gosh darn kelpy!
She tries to keep up the image, but Birch has a hard time resisting the sweet temptations of meat. I wish that didn't sound as suggestive as it does, but that's actually the plot. But there's a moment where Mr. Tozen reminisces about a toy from his childhood.
Oh, I had one just like this when I was a boy. How marvelous!
And for 5 seconds, the world of My Life Me doesn't seem so bad. But this brief moment of relief is ruined when he goes on a rampage trying to collect all the different cars, and he even tries to steal from a little girl. There's no joke here, he just straight up attacks a small child.
Hey, kid!
Huh?
Give me that car!
No,
Give me
no,
the car!
no, no.
Mr. Tozen, you are one sick bastard. At the end of the episode, they try to throw in a positive message, but it's poorly implemented. When Birch is revealed to be a fake vegetarian, Raffi says it's okay, because he doesn't try to force his views on other people. But then how come he doesn't get upset at Birch when she's bitching at people trying to eat burgers? You had one lesson to teach and you couldn't even do it properly. But none of this seems to matter as Raffi's vegetarianism is never brought up again. Come to think of it, I don't think we ever see him eat again. Yet he never appears to be hungry. So is Raffi some kind of superhuman? Is he a robot? Is he an alien? Okay, the alien claim's a bit far-fetched. I mean, who would believe such a ridiculous... Birch becomes paranoid after watching a documentary on aliens, and she starts suspecting that everyone around her is an alien. Just from that premise alone, I knew I was in for something stupid. While Birch is busy playing with tinfoil hats, the rest of the school is trying to throw her a surprise party. Why do they want to throw her a party?
Well, my mom told me that her aunt told her that Birch was really missing her old friends.
Homesick? That makes sense.
Wait, hold on a second. Old friends? You mean to tell me this whole time Birch was supposed to be the new girl in town and you're only acknowledging this fact 23 episodes in? You'd think this be an important aspect of Birch's character, but nope, it's never brought up again. What is with this show in glossing over details? I mean, you might as well tell us that Liam fought in the Vietnam War and got both his legs blown off, and Raffi had to build him new ones out of popsicle sticks. I mean, who cares? Clearly the writers don't. But putting that aside, this episode has a bunch of dumb misunderstandings, Sandra being bitchy for little to no good reason, and there's this one moment in the first half where the guys ask Birch why she's acting so weird, and before she even finishes a sentence, they fucking leave.
I'm fried. Neko kept waking me up. I didn't sleep a wink.
Like, don't bother asking if you don't want to listen, you fucking assholes. And the episode ends with a seriously lame welcome party. It's just a slide projector in the gym with one picture. Yeah, welcome to the family, Birch. This episode is a special kind of painful, because it's a musical episode. And let me tell you right now, anytime this show has a musical performance, 9.9 times out of 10, it sucks. And this episode has multiple musical performances. Oh, joy! The plot involves everybody wanting to be part of the school play, brilliantly titled Teen World. That's the product of a writer not paid enough to care. Birch happens to be a big fan of Teen World, but is too shy to audition. But eventually Liam convinces her and they both audition together. The audition song and main song of the play is called No Longer Just a Kid. It's a song about growing up and coming of age, and well, it's no Damn It by Blink-182 to put it nicely.
No longer just a kid, I still got time left to grow. Why does time move so slow?
And that leads us to by far the worst part of the episode, Amelia's audition. I'm not gonna say too much, I'm just gonna play you part of the scene unedited and uninterrupted. And I'm not gonna lie, it's probably going to hurt you, and I apologize in advance.
No longer just a kid, no longer just a kid. I've still got time to grow. Choose my path, choosing my path.
I feel dirty.
So after the auditions, Bert scores the part of Amelia's understudy for the lead. And the second half is where the plot goes a strange direction. I thought they would have had it so Birch got the lead, Amelia would have been jealous and then tried to sabotage Birch. That's typically how these kind of stories go. But instead, Liam and Amelia's podmate Zeke lock Amelia in the girls' room so that Birch can be the lead in the play.
That was the right thing to do.
No, that's crap, Sharon.
How am I supposed to root for these characters when they're so clearly in the wrong? Sure, Amelia was kinda pompous, but she definitely didn't deserve to get shafted in the way that she did. She got the lead fair and square. And all this just so Birch could have another shitty performance of No Longer Just a Kid. But then again, if Amelia was on stage, she would have done her rendition of the song.
Ooh,
You know what? I take back what I said. Amelia deserved it. This episode ranks high on my shit list because it's a Sandra-focused episode, and that instantly docks it like 10 points. The premise is that Sandra hurts herself during gym class and Birch has to look after her. And Sandra, being Sandra, takes advantage of the situation to make Birch miserable.
My books, Birch, they won't get themselves, you know.
I want a smoothie. Since I have a lot of time to think now that I can't walk, I'd like my room painted green.
What?
Seriously, what deep dark hell did you crawl out of? And what's worse than Sandra being a slate driver is that Birch's podmates don't seem to care.
I'm sorry, Liam, but Sandra's been keeping me busy
I'm hearing nothing but excuses.
It's episodes like this that reinforce the fact that these people are bad friends. They're constantly trying to screw each other over, acting in their own self-interest, and blackmailing one another to do things, which seriously contradicts the whole idea of pod loyalty. Because if someone truly believes in doing what's best for the group, then you shouldn't have to blackmail them. I can't even spend time feeling sorry for Birch because I'm too busy being pissed off at everybody else. But the most frustrating thing is that Sandra doesn't even really face repercussions for being a bitch the whole episode. She eventually gets exposed as a faker and gets a pie in the face, but that's just not good enough. She needs to suffer.
Suffer!
God, if only that pie was a bomb.
A bomb?
And for the fifth and final bad episode, we have what I consider Birch at her worst. The premise is that a substitute fills in for Mr. Tozen named Mrs. Tip.
He said,
Tip! Yeah, tip!
Birch asks what happened to Mr. Tozen, but she doesn't get an answer. And after seeing Mr. Tozen's desk get replaced and Mrs. Tip's laughing with the principal, she comes to the only logical conclusion.
I think she got him fired and we should do something about it.
Well, to be fair, he does have a record of attacking kids over toy cars. But seriously, why does Birch make such a big deal about this? Most rational people would just assume Mr. Tozen's sick or injured. They wouldn't just accuse a random substitute of foul play. That's another problem I have with this episode. We don't learn enough about Mrs. Tip. When the characters talk about how they like or dislike her, there's no basis for their opinions because we know nothing about her personality. If the only reason I have to dislike her is because Birch doesn't like her, then I'm gonna need a better reason. So Birch, being the self-appointed hero that she is, decides to start a revolution against Mrs. Tip and try to get her fired. Dude, she's a substitute. She doesn't even work there. And it's confusing because none of the other kids seem to have a problem with Mrs. Tip, yet they're so on board for Birch's revolution. These people don't feel like characters, they're simply pawns to serve the story. But then we reach the 7-minute mark. And we finally learn the shocking truth about what happened to Mr. Tosin.
Norman and I go way back. He asked me to fill in for him while he went surfing. He just didn't want everyone knowing his business.
Birch then apologizes to Mrs. Tips and learns not to overreact at every tiny thing. The end.
Hey baby, I hear the blues.
No, wait, that's not what happens. What actually happens is that Birch gets flustered, the floor splits in two, she falls between the cracks, and Mrs. Tip is unfazed by the whole situation. I don't blame her. And man, that janitor does a bang-up job, because the next day the floor looks good as new, not a single crack to be seen. That man may be in hell, but he's doing God's work. So Birch realizes there's nothing wrong and she was being fussy for no reason. But then after learning the truth, what does she do? She lies and says Mrs. Tip blackmailed her to stop her revolution.
It's not my fault! Miss Tip got hold of the comic book and she threatened to get me expelled if we continued to resist. Huh?
Whoa.
She'd rather continue her baseless rebellion against an innocent woman than admit she was wrong. You are scum. And I haven't even talked about Sandra yet. And that's because she's not that bad in this episode. Yeah, honestly. This is a rare case where Sandra's actions are actually reasonable. She doesn't hate Miss Tip for no reason, she rags on Birch for overreacting, and when Birch lies, she actually wants to join the revolution and help Birch.
Everything's all topsy-turvy now.
To quickly summarize the ending, Birch eventually comes clean, Mr. Tosin returns, he gives the class extra homework for starting an unprompted rebellion, and everyone is mad at Birch. At the very least, she does face repercussions for her actions. But we don't even get a proper conclusion with Mrs. Tip. Her last scene is of her collecting homework and then she disappears, never to be seen again. Sorta like the precious hours of my life that I've spent subjecting myself to this goddamn show! So yeah, this episode sucks. Now I know I've been pretty ticked for most of this review, which to be fair I think is pretty justified. But I'm gonna try to end things on a positive note, by listing 5 things about My Life Me that didn't totally suck. I may be scraping at the bottom of the barrel here, but it's better than nothing, so here we go! Number 5, in the episode Manga Slam, we're introduced to the character of Fred.
Catch you later, Fred, my man.
And I like Fred, he seems friendly. Sure, he may not have a single line, he may only have one appearance as far as I know, but he's a named character and I don't hate him, and I think that counts for something. But I have to wonder, does Liam actually catch Fred later?
The world may never know.
Number 4, in the episode Bad Company, Mr. Tosin shows the class an 80s PSA about the dangers of bad influences. It's about as cheesy as you'd think. But there's a part where this green-haired guy plays drums for like 2 seconds and he is crushing that double kick drum part. Number 3, in the episode The Diary, there's a small subplot involving Sandra keeping a video diary. She's hesitant at first, but eventually opens up and talks about the saddest day of her life.
Do you ever feel like breaking down?
And it's kind of funny. Now I know I'm coming off as kinda cruel right now, but just hear me out. It's all about the delivery. Hearing Sandra, the constantly angry skater chick, get uncharacteristically mopey is kinda funny to me. Especially when you learn it's over a birthday clown.
All I wanted was a clown for my 5th birthday party, but no. My mom couldn't find a single lousy clown.
Does this make me a heartless bastard? I don't know. Maybe think of it as catharsis for how frustrating Sandra is the other 90% of the time. Speaking of which, number 2. In the episode Finding Neko, Liam slaps Sandra.
Okay, great.
The sound effect is crisp, it's well timed, and Liam slaps Sandra.
Okay, great.
And number 1. An episode of My Life Me I didn't hate. Yes, there is an entire episode of this god-awful show that didn't make me want to stab my monitor with a fork. And it's called The Big Flap. Okay, the name isn't that great, but I swear this is the good episode. The premise is pretty straightforward. Liam's hiding something in a box, and Birch, being the nosy Nettie that she is, tries to see what's inside. This episode mitigates a lot of the problems that the rest of the show has. You actually sympathize with Liam as Birch and others just won't leave him alone. When the events of the episode resolve, the outcome feels justified. It's refreshing to have an episode that makes just a bit more sense. The only major complaint that I have is regarding the 3 Raffi fangirls. They don't add much other than their typical Raffi gushing, and their inclusion was mostly unnecessary. But that's really the worst of it. The story moves at a reasonable pace, there's less stupid dialogue than usual, and the climax features a halfway decent chase scene with some surprisingly catchy chiptune music. I mean, it's not a masterpiece or anything, but it's actually tolerable, which by this show's standards is amazing. And there you have it. I said I'd end things on a positive note, and I did. So before the scene of Amelia's audition can resurface from my repressed memories, let's wrap things up.
No longer just a kid.
And that was My Life Me. More like my life's a bit shorter now, cause good God, that was rough. This is easily the worst show I've reviewed thus far. There's not much else I can say about it that I haven't already in the last half hour. But if you have a sick curiosity and want to watch the series for yourself, all 52 episodes of the series can be found on YouTube, at least as of this video. My Life Me was a challenge to watch, but I gotta say, complaining about it was pretty cathartic. I finally got to channel my inner AVGN.
Shit the fuck!
While I enjoy going over forgotten gems of the past, every now and then, it's fun to yell at forgotten duds. And on that note, we've reached the end. So as per usual, I'm Andyb, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if I make another, I'll see you then. Take it easy.
How thick are you?